Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Geographical 2022. My name is Devaja. I'm a PGM on the Earth Outreach team, and I'm joined today by Justine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Justine. I'm a software engineer on the MyMaps team.
And today we're going to teach you how to do quick map making with MyMaps. All right, so let's get started. We have a packed agenda in the next hour. Today's session is going to be all about doing a quick recap of MyMaps. So whether you're an old user or if you're just getting started with MyMaps, we're going to start right from the basics, teaching you how to import a spreadsheet and add your place marks to create a MyMap. Next, we'll cover some use cases and then dive straight into some of the new exciting features that were announced earlier today and how you can use them in your projects. We'll do a quick intro to the features and then cover like 2 hands-on tutorials on each of the features. Last, we'll leave the final 10 minutes if you have any questions. And we have our awesome TAs here who will be helping you out in case you get stuck during the tutorial. So feel free to raise your hand and they should be able to help you out. It's Eob, Christian, and Devon. That's Eob, that's Tara, and Christian. Okay, so let's dive right in. For those of you who are new to Google My Maps, My Maps is our easiest, simplest, and quickest map making tool, allowing you to make customized maps leveraging the power of our rich mapping database. Easy does not equate to feature poor. In fact, it's a very feature-rich tool. And with My Maps, you can add custom location data in the form of points and shapes. You can make them more rich with the help of photo and video data. You can also bring in your own data to the map using spreadsheets and KMLs. Using these features, you can make lightweight, data-packed web maps that are fully interactive without having to get into code and get your hands dirty with the Maps API. This is a completely free alternative. You can also view the maps on multiple surfaces, be it on mobile, in the Google Maps app. Imagine a My Map of restaurant recommendations that you want to share with your closest friends. You can also embed your maps in a website and make it a source of truth for any information that you want to share and update about your organization or projects that are happening within your community. Last but not the least, My Maps are great for sharing. Just like how you share a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet, you can share a link, make it public. You can also create a collaborative map that other folks in your organization or even the community can crowdsource and populate. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Justine, who's going to teach you how to create a basic map in My Maps.
Thank you. So yes, we are going to go through an exercise today where we create a map. We're going to add photos and videos. We're going to import data, style data, and then we're also going to show you how to share those maps that you make. All right, so we're going to get started. In this exercise, we're going to pretend that we are an initiative to plant more trees, and we're going to call ourselves Tree at Your Door. We are going to collect participant information with Google Forms. We're going to export those responses to Google Sheet, and then import that data into My Maps. So if anyone wants to follow along, I invite you to go to this link, and I'll give you a moment. It has instructions and links for everything we're going to cover in the tutorial. Thumbs up when you have the link ready. I'm going to make sure everyone gets a chance.
If anyone is having trouble or needs help, feel free to raise your hand.
OK. Oh, skipped right over it. All right, so go ahead and open another tab in your browser and log in to mymaps.google.com with your Google account. I've already done that, and this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a dashboard with My Maps that you've created, the ones that you've seen, the ones that you've shared. And to create a brand new My Map, you're just going to go ahead and hit that red Create New Map button. I'm going to go ahead and open this one that I've already created. All right, So here you can see an interactive map. You can pan around, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. In this left-hand corner, you're going to see a panel. This is kind of like a table of contents for your map. On the right, there's a search bar, and then right under that, you're going to see a bunch of buttons that we're going to learn how to use today. All right, to get started right away, we're going to go ahead and retitle our map. You do that by just going ahead and clicking on it. And I'm going to title this Tree at Your Door Map. And I'm also going to edit the description. A map for tracking our trees. But again, you can edit this at any time. Next, I want to highlight that you're going to see all of your layers right below that. And then one last thing, you can change the base map. And a lot of this is aesthetics, but for example, if you wanted to zoom in and really get a detailed view of what you're looking at and where you want to put place marks, you can hit satellite view. But for now, I'm going to keep it on the regular map. All right, so that covers the general UI. We're going to go ahead and try to add a place by search first. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the address for Googleplex, which starts out with 1600. And you're going to see a bunch of places pop up in the suggest area. I'm going to click this one because this is the one that I'm looking for. Verify that this is the area that I actually want, and click Add to Map. Notice how when we did a search, there's this little box with more information about the place. You can keep it, but you can also remove it. And then we can edit the description as well. All right, so that was adding a place with a search bar, but there's other ways to add places. Say we know that we planted a tree in this area over here. We could go ahead, back up towards the search bar and hit Add Marker. Go to the area on the map we want to add the marker, click, and say, hey, we planted a tree right here. Oh. Perfect. All right, so that's adding a marker. But say in this initiative we really wanted to target a certain area on a road. We could do that by drawing a line. And to do that, we just go back up towards the search bar and hit Draw a Line. Click here. And we're just going to practice drawing a line by going ahead and clicking as many times as you want. Now, when you're done with your line, you can either hit the Enter key or you can double click and add in title and description information. Great. Now, we're not just limited to lines, we can also do polygons, so I'm going to do an example of that here too. And it's the same workflow. Click Add a Line, and go ahead and draw your lines. This is the same as drawing a line, but you're going to connect to that first dot that you added. Now I wanted to call out that all of these items that we just added showed up in this first layer, and we can customize the name of this layer as well by clicking on the three dots and click Rename Layer. So let's call this Fieldwork. Perfect. Now that we've shown how to add points and polygons and lines in a few different ways, we can also add some styling. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So let's go ahead to our first point that we added and hit the paint bucket sign. And we can change the color, for example. And if we go to our next one, we can even change the icon. So there's a couple of icons populated here, but if you wanted something more specific, you can click More Icons, and you've got tons of choices here. You can also search and choose by category. Another option is to choose a custom icon. So let's try that out. I have a photo in my Google Drive that I want for my icon, and I'm going to go ahead and choose it. Click OK. And now our icon shows up. You can also style your lines and polygons. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. So for the street, I want to make that line a little bit thicker so it's easier to see. And I'll change the color too. And same thing for the polygon. So again, we can go ahead and style that polygon. We can also change its transparency. There. Perfect. All right, so say we wanted to add more data to our items here. We can add photos. And we can do that by either going to our Google Drive. Say we know we want to plant flowering trees in this area. We can add those. And you're not limited to just one. You can add as many here with the plus sign, and then you can also delete them with the trash can sign. You can also do the same with videos. So it's the same thing, except you can upload one, you can do a YouTube search, or you can even just paste in the YouTube URL. Great. All right, so say you wanted to add an attribute to all of the points that you created. Maybe you say, well, now we want to know what type of tree we added in each place. One way that you can do that is by going to the layer and hitting Open Data Table. And what you see here is a row for every single item and a column for every single attribute. And at any time, we can go over to the column, hit the down arrow, and we can add in more columns. So let's go ahead and try that. You're going to want to give that column a name. So I'm going to say type of tree. And then you're going to click the type of attribute. So right now we have text. It could also be a number, a date and a time, or a true false. We'll stick with text. And now we can click on any of these and add information. So I'm going to say we planted a flowering tree right there. Just keep in mind that by editing this data table, you're not actually editing the underlying data source. So these changes won't show up in your Google Sheet if you're importing. All right, so speaking of importing, say you have hundreds of points that you don't want to go in and add manually. What you can do is import it by adding a layer and clicking import. And before we do that, I'm going to show you real quick what our form looks like. So say we sent this out to participants and we asked for basic information like email, name, phone number, address, and preferred type of tree. One thing I will note is if you want to use a Google form and a Google Sheet to import, it has to have some kind of location information like an address or latitude and longitude. So notice I made that a required field. And then this is what those responses would look like. So you've got a row for every single submission, a timestamp of when it was submitted, the email, the name, phone number, address, and the type of tree. So now that we have our sheet, we can go ahead and pull it into My Maps by clicking Import, Google Drive, and you should all have access to this folder, by the way, through that demo page. So we're going to click the Interest Google Sheet for this demo. And you're going to see a dialog pop up where you can choose the source of the address information. We're going to click Address. And we're also going to choose a title. For the sake of the demo, I'll just go ahead and choose email address. And now we can see all of our points on the map. One thing you'll notice is that when you import, the name of the layer is the name of the source file. So you can always change that and make it a little bit more specific by just changing this, let's say, interest form. And again, you can always edit that later. Now notice that these all have the same exact style. That's what they're going to look like when you group them all together, but you can change that by clicking on the Uniform Style button. And you can style many different ways. You can do individual styles like we were doing before, but you can also style based on the underlying data, which is pretty cool. So we're going to do that based on the type of tree. Now, because we have a categorical variable here, we're going to have just categories and a color for each category, but if it were numeric, you could also do ranges. And at the same time, we're going to set a label. So next to each pin, you're going to see a name, for example. And now, when you scroll around, you're going to see all of the names, which may help you figure out where you want to go. And again, we can change these icons if we'd like. All right. The last thing I wanted to show you here was that this is what the map looks like in edit mode. Anyone who has edit access can see it this way, but if you want to see what your viewers are going to see, you're going to hit this preview button up here, and it'll open up another tab. And as you see, anytime you click on any of the points, all of that information is going to pop up. And one last thing you can also do is you can embed this map in a website. And all you have to do for that is going up to the map title, click the 3 dots, embed on my site, and all you have to do is copy and paste this little snippet of HTML. You don't have to do any extra coding, which makes it really easy. All right. That wraps up the initial tutorial. Hopefully you were able to follow along. If not, go ahead and see that doc. You're going to see a lot of comments with step-by-step instructions. And for now, we're going to move on and do a recap. Again, we took a form, we took the responses, and we put those into Google Sheet, in Google My Map. And this is just one example of like a screenshot of what this might look like if you were to embed it on a website. One last note, we are a little bit restricted on the types of files that you can import. We have a list here of valid file types, and then we are a little bit restricted on how many features and how many layers you can have in a map, as well as the size and number of rows. I'm going to pause for people taking pictures. Go for it. Awesome. All right, so now we're going to go into a couple of different use cases. My Maps is used for all kinds of things. To list just a couple, we have indigenous peoples, we've got crisis response teams, we've got journalism, and just right now we're going to go into a couple of examples of these use cases. All right, so first, this was created by Cultural Survival in collaboration with indigenous peoples. They were mapping where COVID cases as well as areas where people were disproportionately harmed and they didn't have the services that they needed. This is another My Map. This one is used for a crisis response. So the polygons here show how the area is split up into different regions, and then the cameras are actually links to see a live view, which helps firefighters and first responders monitor maps, monitor fires, and monitor how they respond to them. This next one is called Stories That Move, and it was used to engage with youth and have youth stories from the youth in Europe. And this was created because anti-Semitism, racism, and discrimination are still affecting the youth everywhere in Europe. And then this last one was created by the county and city of LA, and they were tracking how they were providing meals to elders ages 60 and older who needed help during COVID. All right, that wraps up that, and I'm going to pass it back to cover new features. And real quick, I'm going to pull back up our speaker notes in presentation view. That's not what we want. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Justine. That was an awesome tutorial. I hope you've gotten your feet wet with what My Maps has to offer. Now I'm going to cover the new features, primarily reimport, add items, and update items introduced in My Maps. So as you heard today morning, we've added a ton of new features, including the ability to personalize your maps with attribution and custom headers for embedded maps in My Maps. You can now change the color of your My Map so that it can match your website, especially if that's a common use case for you. We're also introducing timestamps to My Maps, which is a super useful feature if you manage crisis maps or maps where it's really important for you to communicate the freshness of data to your audience. We're also adding export in CSV and support for WKT geometry. I had to actually Google the full form before my talk, making it easier for you to take data from My Maps and put it out into other sources, as well as bring data back from a variety of sources into My Maps. Last but not the least, you can now view your My Maps in 3D in Google Earth. And for those of you who've been using My Maps for a bit and who are concerned about data privacy, allowing users to not be able to download your data, we've also introduced features last year that allow you to disable download SKML and disable printing your maps so that your data stays safe. In the next segment, I'm going to do a deep dive on two of our most exciting features. till date, which is the ability to add, update, and replace items in a data layer, in an existing layer in a map without losing your styling, and also being able to merge two data sets within my maps itself. Before that, I wanted to quickly cover the new personalization feature, which Justine actually helped build. So a big shout out to Justine for making this feature possible on my maps today. It's now possible to use your Google profile picture, which in our case, when we're running like a tree NGO, we might have a custom icon or a custom logo that we want to mark on my map, saying that, hey, this is on my map. It can be a way to indicate an authoritative source, especially if a government agency is creating a my map. It adds this nice bit of personalization to the map, especially when it's shared or embedded. And like I mentioned, you can also customize the colors of the headers to better match other design or other sort of systems that your map is embedded in, and have it be consistent with your branding. Okay, moving on to Reimport, you have 3 options to manipulate your map data from a sheet using the new features. First, if you have a living spreadsheet, like a sign-up form that we just showed, where new entries get added every day, you can use add items just to update any new data that comes in, any new responses, or any new data points that get added. Next is update items, which is slightly different from add items. You can update a database, which means change existing data in the database to the latest values, as well as add new information. So that's where it's a little different. Add is just adding new information. Updating is really changing existing data and adding new rows or columns of input. Think of it as a sheet that you're maintaining for a research project where the data parameters are bound to change as your project progresses, but you really don't want to lose the original maps or the data that you already created, but just update it or tweak it slightly. The last is replace items. If you want to completely update your data entries, think of a use case like an earthquake alert map, which regularly gives updates on specific locations, or a weather map. You don't want to use your styling or the actual layout of the map, but you just really need to update data in the same format day in and day out, and replace it entirely so that the data is updated to that specific date. So that's where replace comes in handy. So just to recap the top use cases, who are these features, or what are these features most useful to? First, if you work with a lot of forms, sending in new data every day, this is a super quick way to keep your maps up to date and in sync with your data sheets. Second, if styling is really important to you, and you use a lot of styling in your My Map, but don't want to waste a lot of time doing it over and over again, this is a great feature to use to maintain your styling while you update your data. Third, like I mentioned earlier, if you have a database that keeps changing in terms of scope and the volume, the update feature is a great way to make sure your maps reflect the changes in your database. And last, and this refers to the merge feature in particular, if you work with multiple data sets and need to combine them in meaningful ways to make sense of them in a map format, you're going to find this feature really useful. Okay, so without wasting more time, we're going to dive into tutorial number 2. The context here is that we have a database of participants, which is the one that we used in the last tutorial to really create like a map from a spreadsheet. That sheet has been recently updated with the latest information on whether folks who signed up to plant a tree have actually planted a tree or not, and photos of the tree. So we have a new updated spreadsheet, which we're now going to try and use with the update items feature. And what I'm going to do is quickly pull up the tutorial link so that you can open it in case you haven't already. And so this is the form that we're going to update. As you can see, we've already styled it by the preferred type of tree. We've also set a label for the name. And what we're going to do now is I'm just going to quickly open the tutorial link. I'm going to quickly show you. This is the sheet that you want to have open. It's called participation, and I'm just going to go back to the interest form. Click on the 3 dots. Click on Reimport and Merge. Click on Reimport, Update Matching Items. That's what we're going to try here. And we already have our spreadsheet, so we'll click on Google Drive, we'll click on Folders, and we'll click on the participation tree. For all of you, you may want to go to the Recent tab and do a quick search, enter participation, so that you can find the spreadsheet. Please feel free to raise your hand if you're having trouble, and one of our TAs will help you. Okay, so this is the most important part, since this is a My Map and we're essentially updating location data. The column that it's asking you to pick is the column that's going to be used to match the location data in the updated database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on address. We have the same data in both of our spreadsheets, and you can see in our updated data we have quite a few new columns, which is, did you plant your tree, what date did you plant your tree, and upload a photo. So once you've selected that, and a cool feature to check out is you can actually click on question mark and preview the data in case you want to make sure if it's the same column. So you can actually go in here and preview the data quickly. So I'm going to click on finish. It's loading, and there you go. We have our new data. I'm going to quickly open the data table so that you can see the updated data here. We have all of our new columns, and I'm going to click on a place mark to show you the new fields added. And you can see that all of the styling has been retained. If you want to undo it, you can just click on undo, and the sheet goes back to the original data. Yeah, so this is our previous database without the update. So it's really as simple as that. I won't demo all of the other items in the category because update and add are pretty much the same. Like I mentioned, update is what we demoed. Replace and add, like I mentioned, replace is if you want to change your entire existing data. Add is if you just want to add new rows of data and maintain the existing data as it is. Okay. Going to Yeah, so I just wanted to do a quick recap of the steps. It's super easy and super simple, but just for you to remember, go in to Reimport and Merge. Select that from the menu. You can access it using the 3 dots. Click on Add items or replace items or update items. Add items is a separate function outside Reimport and Merge. keep your new data sheet ready. You can even import like a CSV spreadsheet or a spreadsheet from your computer. It doesn't have to be a Google Sheet. Be sure to match the columns. Your new sheet must have at least one location-based column, given that this is a my map that we're trying to make. And yeah, last but not the least, we just demoed update, but feel free to try out add or replace and see how those functions work to update your data sets. Okay, so next we're going to move on to merge items, and I'm going to quickly walk you through a tutorial to merge two data sets using a geographical parameter. So the setup and situation here is that now that your trees are getting planted, you actually want to see what the impact has been in each region, how many trees are getting planted. We're going to use a self-reported form of data submitted by our volunteers in terms of how successful they were in getting a tree planted in their region. And we're going to merge it with a US state boundary file taken from the government website, which gives us like the boundaries of states, and we're going to see within state what our impact has been for each of our tree planting campaigns. So yeah, in case you don't have the tutorial doc, please open it up. And I'm going to escape. And just quickly go to the spreadsheet so that you know where to be. We're doing tutorial 3. And what we're going to do now is add a new layer. And we're going to import the impact spreadsheet first, and I'm just going to quickly show you the spreadsheet itself before updating it so that you can see it for yourself. You basically have volunteer email and credentials. We have the address. This is the column that we're going to use to merge, which is basically like a code for the state. We also have from a 0 to 1 how what is the amount of success they've had. So you can think of a 0.6 as 60%. And we also have the date of final outreach to participants for the program. So yeah, that's what the spreadsheet looks like. I'm going to go back to the demo, click on the impact spreadsheet. We're going to pick volunteer name, continue. We're going to pick address for the place marks. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. This is the position. Oops. Address, and then we're going to put the name to title the place marks, and then that's it. What we're going to do is we're going to style by the successful plantings, and we get a nice option to bucket this into ranges so that we don't really have to worry about like individual data, but we can actually see the trends in terms of the success. And that's that. So you can see we've been bucketed from 0.05 to 0.15. And we have like 5 to 2 place marks in each option. Okay, now what we're going to do is go back, click on the 3 dots, click on Reimport and Merge, click on Merge Matching Items, go to Google Drive, or you can even search from recent. We're going to pick the US state boundaries. This is a, okay, awesome, this worked. So what we're going to do is use the column that I shared earlier, which is STU SPS. It's a short code for all of the states, and you can see the data in both the columns. Click on finish. Awesome. So if you open up the original KML, it was actually like, it had all 50 states and boundaries, but what the feature does, it just clips the data to the data that covers the existing fields in your data set. And what you can do here, I'm just going to hide these two. Oops, I lost my cursor. Yeah, I'm going to hide these two forms so that it looks neater. But yeah, you can basically see a map of how your initiative is performing by state. So we're doing pretty well in California and, sorry, bad with my geography, I think Michigan. And yeah, I think we can do a lot better on Washington, Colorado, and Texas. And then we have no presence in any of the other states, so we really need to up our game and get more volunteers in those states. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in and do a quick recap. How do you merge two data sets? Go back to reimport and merge. Add your spreadsheet or KML. It's really important here to make sure that your sheets have at least one column in common with your existing data set so that you can actually perform the merge. And because we're in My Maps, that column has to be a column of location data. Otherwise, it's not going to work in terms of giving you like the visual element. If there is a non-location data that you want to match on, it will still work, but then you just have like added data and like no variation in terms of the location in your map. Yeah, don't forget to choose the column that you can use to merge the data sets. And a bonus try, which is something we did in our tutorial today, is try using KMLs or any other formats to actually merge your data sets. So before we dive into Q&A, I just wanted to share a few helpful resources. One is if you want more of my maps, you can attend the Engaging with Community Mapping session happening on October 5th. Yeah, are you leading that session? Awesome. So please be sure to attend his session. I also highly encourage checking out the tutorial and the help page. I'm not going to click on this link, but if you go to this page, you can actually get more info on how to use each of the features that new features that I shared today. And then if you are really excited to do a lot more with My Maps, this was just the surface of what's possible. You can check out our advanced trainings available online, which is data visualization in My Maps and creating a map of photos with My Maps, both really amazing trainings to do a deep dive into My Maps. They're all available on demand on our Earth Outreach On Air site. And with that, we're going to go into questions if anyone has any. Yeah. Can we get the mic? Oh, this is because the session is being recorded, so
okay, I don't know how helpful this would be, but I just had trouble with that last step that you had. So importing like something like the state boundaries, what the files that I downloaded from the census site that you were on didn't seem to have KML, so I didn't know what the format is to import onto My Maps.
Yeah, it has to be, that's a good question. It has to be in a KML file if you're trying to import data from another source. It can also be a CSV.
So do you have like a recommendation for like a good place to find those kind of like boundary files?
Boundaries, yeah. I think on that website, maybe I clicked on the wrong link because I literally downloaded it from the same site in the morning. But I think if you go back into the same website, you should be able to see an option, and maybe I can help you debug it offline as well. But yeah, they do have an option to download in KML.
So we use live maps. One of the main reasons we use it, at least in Florida, is for the Space Coast. When we do rocket launches with NASA, we're adding, you know what I mean, last time 600,000 people in a small county. So we used my maps to like send viewing locations to the residents and visitors of saying, hey, you know what I mean, because it works good with Google Maps to say, I want a direction to, the, you know what I mean, this viewing location. One of the biggest problems we're having is when that parking lot gets full, to push that person headed to that viewing location that, hey, you know what I mean, that lot's full, you need to now choose another viewing location. How would you best reflect, I guess, that? Because in the data set, if we update one of the locations is like parking lot full, but that doesn't translate, I guess, to Google Maps if the person's already driving. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no way to reflect it within the POI in Google Maps itself. But with the new features, you can do a couple of things. One is you can have like a separate column that says full or at capacity. And second is you can also update the icons to reflect accordingly. So maybe you can have like a small X or you know, another like warning sign that lets them know visually that you should avoid these parking spots. Yeah, I wish there was a better answer for how to do it on Google Maps, but I guess this is the best workaround for now. Did you want to add anything?
No, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, did someone else raise their hand? Okay.
I just have one question.
yeah.
If
Go ahead.
the data locations in two columns, like latitude, longitude, if the data locations in two columns, like latitude, longitude, do you have to merge those two into one column for it to work, or can you select?
No, you can select both. There is an option, yeah, to do it. And it'll ask you like which one's which when you try to import it.